This video was made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Check out patreon.com/NWR for all the details.
Three years into the life of the Nintendo Switch, and the platform has become a haven for Metroid-inspired games. Metroidvanias, if you will. Dozens upon dozens are already available on the system. We covered a lot of them in an earlier video, and there were even more that easily could have been included in that video, but I'm only one man. But enough about the past, let's talk about the future. We've got four, that's 4 upcoming Switch Metroidvanias that, at least in my eyes, are worth paying attention to. Once again, any unmentioned games are probably still cool. Share those in the comments, but for the purposes of this video, I'm just focusing on these four. Let's start with Alwa's Legacy. It's the sequel to Alwa's Awakening, which seems to be doing much more than the retro-oriented inspiration of the original. We covered the original in our previous video, but it was the first game from Eldin Pixels, a small team featuring some talent from Image and Form and Zoink Games. It was designed to be an NES classic made in the modern day, not so much making something brand new, but creating an homage to the era. The sequel, Alwa's Legacy, is aiming to be more of a modern retro game, in their words. Part of that is to shed some of the preconceived notions of the NES style, while still keeping in line with the positives of the original. Eldin Pixels began work on Alwa's Legacy by listing out the 10 most common complaints about their first game. Their goal was to fix those issues. One of those critiques was the slowness of player movement. So for the sequel, heroine Zoe moves much faster. There are even warp points that players can create. The overworld, which draws some inspiration from Zelda, also makes backtracking less of an arduous task. As someone who echoes the complaints regarding slow player movement and backtracking, I'm excited for Alwa's Legacy. One other aspect also stands out to me, and that's the game's relatively non-violent design. It even includes a pacifist mode if you want to engage in a no-kill run. Alwa's Legacy has been out on Steam since June, and it's been very well received, notching a very positive rating on that store. The Switch release is very close. Coronavirus didn't majorly impact development, but it did add a lot more stress and anxiety to the final stages. That's mostly why Eldin Pixels focused on bringing the game to PC first, and only focused on the Switch version after the PC version was finished. As of this recording, Alwa's Legacy could be given a Switch release date pretty much any day now, as it's currently going through the submission process at Nintendo. The next game that we're going to be going over is Axiom Verge 2. The sequel to Axiom Verge, which is a game that captured my attention when I first came across it. The look of familiarity recalled Metroid and other classic games. While my excitement was high, I don't think I was quite ready for how much I enjoyed the final product across its PlayStation 4 debut and eventual launches on Wii U and the Switch. It was the rare game I double-dipped to buy physically on Switch as well. So it's no surprise that the announcement of Axiom Verge 2 in December 2019 was music to my ears. Like the original, Axiom Verge 2 is largely a one-man show from Tom Happ. His passion fuels the project, and in his words, why would he even hire people to do things he already wants to do himself? He's going to do the design, and much to my delight, he's still making the music himself. There will be a little bit more of a folky, acoustic influence this time around, though, as that was highlighted in the reveal trailer back in December 2019. Being a one-man developer, the sequel has taken quite a long time to develop. While Happ did map out numerous possible games in the Axiom Verge universe while making the first game, he settled into the story and setup for the sequel by the end of 2015, a few months after the first game debuted. The sequel stars a new character, the mysterious billionaire Indra, and will function as its own standalone story, though there will be callbacks to the original. Outside of the story, Happ is sticking more or less to what's been briefly shown so far. He does speak of other classic games that will leave their mark on his next game, specifically calling out the Zelda series, Rygar, Batman Arkham games, and Shadow of the Colossus. There's even a tantalizing cool new feature that will be revealed at a later date. That later date could be soon, as Axiom Verge 2 is currently set to launch on Switch in the fall of 2020. The third game is one that maybe you haven't heard about. It's Gestalt, Steam, and Cinder. It wasn't one that I heard about all that much. There was a demo for it at PAX East 2020, and I sat down to play it and was blown away at how fun it was to play. The debut game from Metamorphosis Games blew my hair back. It's very much inspired by games like Castlevania Symphony of the Night, but it looks like it's being seen through a much more modern lens. Metamorphosis formed back in 2017. Tom Marr, the creative director, left behind a life as a lawyer. His first game is the upcoming Gestalt Steam and Cinder, which, in his words, seeks to straddle the line between the layout of the Metroidvania Castlevania games and the gameplay of the more level-based classic Vania games. Building off of that Vania foundation, one of the driving questions the team tried to answer was, what if old-school Squaresoft made an action platformer? Thus, they looked to the likes of Chrono Trigger and Xenogears for story inspiration. The game is largely quest-driven across a straightforward narrative, but many minor divergences can happen along the way. One of those is just in how you build your hero. The steampunk heroine Alethea levels up and earns stat points that can be put into different traits. She has both melee and ranged attacks, and you can really hone in on one if you so choose. More abilities are unlocked along the way as well, but the high degree of player customization looks to be fascinating. As of now, Gestalt Steam and Cinder is set for a 2020 launch. The team is mostly remote, so while COVID-19 has definitely still affected them, largely their process hasn't been too sidetracked. When I first played the demo back at PAX East, I was really intrigued, but after playing the recent demo shown off during the Steam Summer Games Festival, Gestalt has truthfully jumped to the front of my anticipated Switch indie game list. It's from a new team. It's definitely invoking very bold influences, trying to draw inspiration from the likes of some of the best games of the 1990s. Sign me up for whenever Gestalt comes out. Alright, so the last game is probably the one that you came here to hear about, and that's Hollow Knight Silksong. Hollow Knight already had really taken the world by storm before it even came out on Nintendo Switch. But for our Nintendo-centric purposes, the launch of Hollow Knight back at E3 2018 was a landmark for the system. The game is seen as one of the best of its kind. Surely, you watching this, there's a good chance it might be in your personal top 5 of the past few years, and maybe of all time. Simply put, Hollow Knight is a masterful game that has thoroughly succeeded in basically every possible way. So they're making a sequel? That seems like it's got a lot to live up to. Well, the sequel, Hollow Knight Silksong, was originally just supposed to be a DLC addition to the original game. After the success of the first game, Silksong eventually expanded into a whole new game experience. It stars Hornet, a beloved NPC in the original game. Hornet winds up in Farloom, a whole new kingdom far away from the Hollow Nest. New worlds are promised that will be able to be explored in new ways with Hornet's more acrobatic-inspired abilities. Hornet's controls and moves aren't the only new additions. A full quest system will be prevalent in Silksong, as well as a crafting system that makes use of different tools. The most thrilling part of Silksong might be the promise of the Silk Soul mode. Similar to the Steel Soul mode of its predecessor, Silk Soul is still somewhat unknown. However, it will be a challenging, likely permadeath featuring post-game mode that should provide players with a bevy of new content to play and replay. Hollow Knight Silksong has no release window. Team Cherry, the developer, has earned the ability to just finish it whenever they want to. With that being said, Silksong could come out tomorrow, or maybe next year, or maybe the year after that. Who knows? All I know for sure is that this game is definitely one to keep an eye on. And with that, that's our lineup of 4 upcoming Metroidvania games that are coming to Switch that you should probably check out. Now, I'm sure there are many, many more games that are coming out soon, or maybe even recently came out, that are also exciting and fun and cool coming to Switch. Simply put, there are a ton of games on Nintendo Switch that I wish I had more time to play all of them. I do know that these 4 games are 4 that I'm going to make time to play, and maybe you will too. Like, seriously, check out Gestalt. Everything that I've seen about that game has been very exciting and promising. Thanks for watching. Bye.
This video was made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Did you know that Nintendo World Report is funded directly by fans like you? When you support Nintendo World Report on Patreon, you get immediate access to multiple exclusive podcasts every month, exclusive Discord channels, an early look at select content, and more, all for as little as $1 a month. Check out patreon.com/NWR for all the details.